Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you're following from other parts of the world. My name is Marina Niforos. I'm affiliate professor at HEC Paris and NED at the HCAP Management Board. I will be your moderator for this next session, Finance, Changing the Rules, where we have an exceptional group of participants and panelists to discuss how we can have finance serving not only profit, but also purpose and people. To open our session, I'd like to welcome Madame Olivia Grégoire, Minister of State with responsibility for social, solidarity, and responsible economy. Madame Grégoire was also chairing the committee that led to fruition the Loi Pacte, the Law of Business Growth and Transformation Action Plan, and someone with a long-standing commitment in promoting inclusive growth. Madame Grégoire.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
How are you? I think you have some exciting things to tell us today about developments since the Loi Pacte.
Definitely. I was proud to be the president for the Special Commission for the Loi Pacte, who was 2 years now. And since more than 2 years, I work on responsible economy near of Bruno Le Maire. And I'm definitely very excited on this amazing event ChangeNOW today, because we got a lot of things to share with you today, and a special initiative that we want to announce here, near of you, near of the ChangeNOW community. And I get a few words, if I can say them, just to draw a little bit the context about the evolution and the regulation on those CSR issues. The fact is that, as you know, I'm just asking if we don't get a little problem of mic.
Do we have a mic problem?
No, it's okay. Okay, because I don't hear myself, sorry. Excuse me. The fact is that during the crisis, as you know, we've been a lot of people talking about the so-called world afterwards, the world of tomorrow, and I think that the recovery area, the one when everything would start again. But the key question, I feel, is that do we really want to get back to what we were used to? It may be the time here in ChangeNOW to discuss the new normal that we hope to get back to. And we've been supporting, as I told you, the responsible economy in the government near of Bruno Le Maire for 10 months now. I'm working on this issue, and 10 months of hard work, of huge work with companies, with the Ministry of Economy in Bercy, and the aim is quite clear. We want to give companies, corporations, the means and the power to let know how they really engage, how they concretely engage in the environmental and social transition. On the one hand, there is an evolution. As you know, customers, employees, investors, they want more and more to get much information as possible on where they work and where their money are going. When you buy something, when you work in a company, what about the sense, what about the utilization of the money? And on the other hand, as you know, there is a huge trend of regulation here in Europe, but I want to underline that it's also all around the world, and I think that you will have a lot of people today who will be okay with my point. From America to China and here in Europe, customers and stakeholders and investors are questioning how to get the economy more responsible. You know that there is a lot of applications and tools to see, to screen if the products are or not responsible. I think it's a good point, and it's an evolution for years now. But the key question is that, is it still enough today to know about a product? Is it sufficient? But if you think that buying a product responsible, labeled as responsible, is enough, I'm asking that if the product is made by a company which is not responsible, I think it makes very little sense in real. As I told you, quickly, on the other hand, regulators and international regulation on this matter of corporate sustainability are growing and growing faster than ever. A directive, as you know, to enhance the CSR reporting is being discussed now at the European level. It's called the CSRD. It should reinforce in the forthcoming years the compulsory publication of ESG indicators and broaden the scope of application to a lot of new firms, up to 50,000 in Europe. So, in brief, companies all around the world and in Europe are coping now a double demand from customers, but also from regulators. Their ability to remain sustainable and competitive will depend on their ability to provide with relevant data, with relevant evidence of their impact. Here is, I would say, the magic word. We are living definitely an impact revolution, and I'm sure that you will listen to the huge Sir Ronald Cohen in a few minutes, just after me. It's a huge moment to listen Sir Ronald Cohen talking about impact, and he will make it far better than I will, so I don't talk anymore about impact, but I really think that impact encompasses any measure of a company's footprint, and we are used to saying in a technocratic way, which I doesn't love, it's the key point of known financial performance.
I think you've described very well this context of the dual pressures, and so in this particular moment that we're living with rising sort of stakeholder demands for greater transparency on one side and regulator requirements on the other, both at the European level but also beyond. You have chosen ChangeNOW, our platform today, to make an announcement about an important initiative, a tool that you put at the disposal of companies to help them better face this challenge. Can you tell us more about it?
Of course, because it's a very important, for me, very important moment, very important from the French Economy Ministry, and important also for my team that I thank, because you know that we are nothing without our teams. It's more than 10 months that we're working on the platform, and we've decided to spread the platform from ChangeNOW, because it was very relevant to do so. Here is the baby. Here is the baby, and it's quite easy. His name is impact.gov.fr. Today, it's kind of new adventure for a French corporation. The impact revolution can increase thanks to the impact platform. It starts, as I tell you, with a very simple link, impact.gov.fr. It's the gate to a new platform we've been building with company. I think it's very important to stress the light on this. With companies, not against companies. We can drive this revolution with companies and not against them. With 100 of pioneers, 100 of companies that you can see just above on the platform. I'm very proud today to tell you a little bit more about this platform. The cornerstone of the platform is my conviction that definitely you can't improve what you can't measure. So we want to help any willing company to first know how to take action on their environmental and social impact, and also, second, to let know what they are already doing well on an environmental, social, but also governance fields. The impact platform that you can see and which is open from now is a good tool that enables all kinds of companies. I just want to say that it's not only for the best in class, or I would say the usual suspect of CSR. It's for all kinds of companies to publish online their positive impact with the help of 47 indicators that we've been building for months with the companies and according to CSRD directive, which is arriving in the forthcoming years. These indicators have been discussed. You can see them just over there. They've been discussed with companies, with major corporation networks that I thank today because they play the game. I want to thank them. And you can find, for example, in those indicators, the greenhouse, for example, gas emissions balance sheet, of course, but also the gender equality index or wage differential or value sharing agreements in the company. It's, I would say, come as you are platform. Come in, get the know-how, and let know what you are doing it. You answer to what you know. When some data is, for example, too complex or too difficult to answer for the moment, put it aside, work on it. There is no problem. You can complete 20 or 30 indicators if you can't complete the 47 ones. With the Impact Platform, my pledge, to sum up, is to create a training club for non-financial performance, a training club for ESG in France. Training in the both meanings. Training, on the one hand, to raise the awareness and prepare companies to collect, to improve their ESG performance. And on the other hand, training also to create a kind of movement, kind of wave of companies, of committed companies on impact here in France. Today we have currently 100 companies who play the game as pioneers, and they agreed to join us as pioneers, early birds, and they are present on the platform. Among this company, you will have, for example, some very well-known, such as Huge Group, LVMH, or Vivendi, Danone, but you get also very local SMEs, some of which may be the local baker or the little company next door in your village or in your city. The key message is that environmental and social performance is not a prerogative of large groups. With the platform, I invite all kinds of companies to be informed and to try to measure and to improve their ESG impact. Today is the first step. It's a huge first step for us. And in 1 month, we will publish the data collected on the platform. It's important also to say that it's free data. It's open data. Because we hope that with this Impact Hub here in France, reusers, startups, searchers, NGOs will get interest in watching these data, and they can freely reuse them, and then imagine new tools to score and to follow the ESG impact of companies here in France. And in a word, not to be too long, I really think that transparency is definitely the best tool for bringing change. Transparency puts companies a little bit under pressure, and it pushes them to constantly improve. It's important to understand that it's a huge revolution for companies to get more and more involved in this transparency. And as said by Churchill, far better than me, I think it's important also as a state to get the condition to create the environment so that the change which is coming on ESG will be nice for companies, and it won't be against companies. Churchill used to say, if you don't take the change by the hand, don't forget that it will take you by the throat. So the objective is taking companies by the hand 3 years before the upcoming regulation all around the world.
Thank you. I think you have given us a lot to think about and a lot to engage on. And so I would open then the floor to say, you know, you have the community that is watching us today, and a lot of companies, I'm sure, representatives of companies. So what do you expect from the ChangeNOW community? What's the call to action? What are the next steps?
The call to action is easy, is that I need you. I need the community of ChangeNOW. I need you to walk the talk on this platform and to encourage as many companies as possible to join us. The platform is easy, it's really user-friendly, and it's quite easy to get involved. I think it's important also to get a message to the community of ChangeNOW. Here is only the first step, and I definitely need you to go further. We already get the next steps in mind, but we need you to make it possible. If the platform is as successful as I really hope, and I really hope this, I plan to develop this impact platform further in the coming months. As I said, this is only the very beginning. For example, I intend to allow companies to publish their own private indicators, depending on their ESG strategy. And I think it's important to allow individual indicators also in order to make impact more relevant, more accurate for companies. There is actually no limit what we can do with such an ESG tool. Impact.gov.fr could become a kind of single access point for monitoring public policies. But first of all, help me, please. It's a call for action, a real one. Help me to let's show the world that we can trigger a large movement of companies committed to train and to improve for a positive impact. Let's take the ESG and impact revolution by the hand, and let's make it a nice revolution for companies. The world is changing. I think that you will listen huge experts in the coming minutes. I think about my very dear friend, Marie Ekeland. I think it's very important to listen to her because the revolution that we're facing now with impact, I really think it's as important as the digital revolution. A lot of points are common in the two revolutions. Let's listen to the huge Sir Ronald Cohen, but also to Marie Ekeland, because she drew parallels which are very interesting. Here is the impact revolution. Let's cope with it. Let's make it on a positive way so that it will be a huge service, a huge help for companies in the coming years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
Madam Minister, and thank you for choosing us to unveil this very important initiative and for, as you said, taking the baton for all of us. So we've heard the pledge that needs to be done on our sides, individually and collectively.
Need you.
And so the lasting word is engage, and engage now for ChangeNOW.
Engage now, and I would say do not let the fear increase. Yes, it's a new regulation, but let's take it by the hand. Let's prepare for it. Let's train for it on the platform. We got a few years to improve and to train so that it could be a very positive tool, both for customers, but as Antoine Sire will explain also on a banking and investing point of view, it's also a revolution made by bankers, by investors. So let's make it together. It's only the beginning. Don't be afraid about it, and be the friend of impact.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. And don't forget, you can find out more at impact.gov.fr.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And have a good day.
Thank you very much. I'll introduce our next panel, a duo of panelists, to provide a complementary perspective, one from an investor side and the other one from a global corporate side that is also a player in finance. To join us, we have digitally, and we expect to have join us digitally on the platform. Sir Cohen is chairman of the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, among many other things which I will not name because it will take up all of our time. He's also been a pioneer in all types of finance as an investor, from private equity to venture capital to impact, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you for being with us today. And Antoine Sire. Antoine is head of engagement for BNP Paribas, a global player in finance and banking, and also someone who's, beside his long-standing career in finance with BNP, has also been very engaged in the public, as I would say, the public affairs, in terms of culture, in terms of being active in inclusive growth. So thank you both for being with us today. And I will perhaps start with you, Sir Ronnie Cohen, because you're obviously a practitioner, and your background testifies to that, but you're also a convener, if I may say so. So you've been very active in also creating platforms to have all the stakeholders come together and debate how we can advance. You were chairing the G8 task force on social investment, et cetera. So from your perspective, in terms of what we're facing, the seminal moment that we heard from the minister before, this inflection point, what do you see the respective roles being for the different stakeholders? And do you really think this is a moment where we kind of go to the other side?
Thank you, Marina. It's a great pleasure to share the platform with you and with Antoine Sire, who is a partner in all impact efforts. And I'd like to start by congratulating Olivia Grégoire on this new initiative, this impact platform, and on recruiting 100 companies to participate in it. I think we have to place these implementation efforts now, because we've moved from awareness to understanding of impact and now to its implementation. In context, Marina, and if I may, I'll say that there are three major forces that make this moment a historic one. The first is the changing values to which Olivia referred, and please call me Ronnie. Olivia referred, that mean that consumers and talent and investors are all seeking to avoid companies that create harm as purchasers of their products, as employees, as investors in them. And this has led to $40 to $70 trillion flowing to investment that seeks to achieve both profit and impact. Massive capital flows. Perhaps 40 or 50% of all professionally managed assets in the world are seeking impact as well as profit today. The second is huge leaps in technology, which enable us to deliver impact to improve lives and the planet globally in ways humanity could never contemplate previously. I'm thinking of artificial intelligence, of machine learning, of augmented reality, of computing and the genome coming together. And the third is this leap in technology enabling us to measure in a granular way the impacts that companies deliver through their operations, through their employment, and through their products on people and planet. So you can see that as these three forces come together, they create opportunities for investors who are beginning to realize that if you continue to invest in companies like ExxonMobil, which double down on investing in fossil fuels, you lose 2/3 of your money in 3 years. If you invest in companies seeking impact like Tesla, you multiply the value of your investment 7 times in 1 year. So investors are a major player now in pushing this whole effort forward. At the same time, the disruption that is coming from these three forces means that entrepreneurs, and we're going to hear about this a bit later, entrepreneurs are creating new business models that bring impact to their core, so that the more impact they deliver, the more profit they deliver. And they're seeking to bring solutions to issues like clean energy, remote education, remote health, transportation, and every other area. In that sense, as Olivia very accurately said, the disruption that's going to come from the impact revolution is going to be very similar to that came from the tech revolution. And then there are implications also for governments. Governments need to bring impact to their side. They need to bring the enterprise and the capital from the private sector to address the big social and environmental challenges they face today, because they're going to emerge from the COVID crisis with increased debt and heightened social issues. And so they need this. And I'll just close by saying that the third element, which is the element of measurement, is going to bring great value to all these different stakeholders, as well as philanthropists. Again, as Olivia said, you can't manage what you don't measure. And when you begin to measure impact and look at opportunities through an impact lens, you discover huge new markets, underserved markets, which until now have been completely neglected. And in my book, Impact, I give many examples of that. So I firmly believe that what's going to drive this revolution forward is that risk-return impact actually will deliver better financial returns for companies and for investors than just optimizing in the way that our traditional form of capitalism has done, risk and return.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. So I will turn now to Antoine. Antoine, we've heard that this is not only a trend we cannot avoid, since it seems to be overwhelming on several levels, from the possibility to have metrics that provide the transparency, from the demand of citizens and customers alike. So from your perspective, in a global finance player, what does the industry perceive being the issue at hand? Is it as revolutionary? Is the impact revolution that we heard from Ronnie and also before from the minister something that's perceived as a compelling business strategy? What do you think is going to happen in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years? And perhaps if you can touch on some of the challenges that you're facing on the ground, in the trenches.
Sure, thank you, and thank you, Ronnie, for your for introducing this essential topic. I believe that what we are facing and what we have to do is both important in terms of impact and in terms of transformation of what our industry, the financial industry, is selling. First, in terms of impact, investors, bankers, yes, it's true, we can have a very important impact. For instance, Sir Ronald mentioned Exxon, and our asset management, BNP Paribas, did introduce one of the climate-related resolutions that were voted yesterday at Exxon general meeting of shareholders. So it's an example. But our work as investors is also to accompany the transformation of the industry. We are not here to condemn the industry. We are not here to cut and stop everything. We are here to very strongly incentivize the needed change, the change now. So that's the first point. The second point is that what we have to sell as bankers, asset owners, asset managers, is simply different. Up to now, we have had to sell performance, risk, and liquidity. And now there is a fourth factor which is added to all what we sell, which is ESG value. So to assess performance, risk, and liquidity, you can rely on the old finance as it has been existing since the Greeks. But to assess the ESG part, you really need to have new tools, new references that make it comparable, and it's a very important industrial transformation. For example, at BNP Paribas, we are working to assess and to pilot our banking portfolio portfolio with climate criteria. Is our banking portfolio including companies that are going to meet the Paris Agreement objective? We never run our portfolio with this, and now with the PACTA methodology, this is what we are doing. Another example, and I have the honor to be one of the chairs of the informal working group of TNFD, which is going to create a common framework for disclosures linked to biodiversity. Biodiversity is essential. The IPBES report in 2018 has shown that we are losing the biodiversity, the vegetal, the animal species at a very, very dangerous pace. And it's very important that we are able to capture our impacts, to disclose it, and as a financial institution, as a bank, as an asset manager, take decisions that will take this into account as much as we do take into account financial factors.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Antoine. So we have seen from both of you that you believe this is an inevitability, let's say, both from a risk perspective in terms of the mounting pressure coming from the outside, and you mentioned the board activism that we saw at Exxon, but also at Chevron and others, Facebook and Amazon this week. I would like to sort of turn on to challenge you a bit and to say, you know, we've seen kind of impact investment kind of trot along for the last 2 decades. And we seem to perceive we're in an inflection point where it's becoming a mainstream and not a sideshow, let's say, but actually a main investment strategy and a main corporate strategy. But what do you think would be some of the challenges in sort of bringing the skeptics and the proponents of the traditional Milton Friedman into the room? What would make sure that this is not just a post-COVID kind of, emotional outburst, but something that can be sustainable as a trend and really mainstreamed? Maybe Ronnie first, and then I'll pass the floor to Antoine.
Marina, I think it's what Olivia Grégoire referred to as the best tool for bringing change, transparency. If we don't have transparency, it's going to be very difficult for investors and talent and consumers to make discriminating choices among companies. And the process will be very slow. And the data that is provided in order to achieve this transparency has to be on a comparable basis. Now, markets can't do that. Governments have to provide the principles that underlie what I like to call ESG Impact Accounting, which I believe is the next frontier. If you can measure in detail, in monetary terms, and compare the environmental impact with the employment impact and with the profit of a company, then you begin as an investor to allocate your assets differently. You start off by looking for companies that are net impact positive after all of their impacts, and they're still making a profit. And you look at those that are not. And you look at those in between that are in transition, seeking to achieve zero carbon emissions, levels of diversity similar to those in the general population, and you begin to support those that are in transition and those that are bringing new disruptive models that bring solutions. Those that are left behind will be like the traditional companies that thought that the tech revolution would only transform the computer industry. In fact, the tech revolution transformed every industry, and impact is about to do the same. And those who don't lead in this change will be dragged by it.
Antoine, do you share that perspective, and particularly in terms of measurement? Because what sometimes we hear by the skeptics is that there's goodwill, but there are too many methodologies, there's no convergence on them. It's always something of an obstacle in the implementation rather than a goodwill to do so. what would you say?
First of all, I believe that the skeptics, the camp of skeptics is really getting smaller and smaller because, and COVID crisis helped, and it's not a fashion, it's a reality, helped to everybody to understand that common good issues can come in your families, can kill people, and can have a real impact on your life. So the number of skeptics is clearly reducing. But what is true is that once you are not skeptic and that once you want to change things, you have a lot of practical hurdles to overcome. And clearly, the fact that there are several standards, several initiatives, it's part of an effort of everybody to overcome the hurdles. And it's normal that in the beginning, it can appear somewhat messy. But when people started IT business, it was exactly the same. You had a lot of standards, you had a lot of solutions because it was a nascent industry, and it was a completely new way to distribute and to work. And I believe that the ESG revolution is as important as the digital revolution, and it's the same kind of effort. In the beginning, it seems to be a bit messy, but everybody who really wants to build the future has understood that it is the right direction. And for example, initiatives such the one taken by Olivia Grégoire is one of the initiatives that help to create more convergence, to create more joint efforts to set common standards.
Thank you. I will sort of take on your last question, and also building on what the minister said before, it's very important, and Ronnie also mentioned that there's a role for governments to play in creating a space where the market has a small failure because everything is still so new. And we have some dominant, let's say, reflexes that need to be unwired and then rewired. And in that sense, we're lucky here in France that we have an initiative such as the one launched by Madame Grégoire. How can we build that in a bigger scale? Because obviously a global multinational or a global investor, when you look at supply chains, for example, if you'd like to be able to cascade those standards and have a methodology that's transparent across someone's supply chain, how can we leverage some of the fora like the G8, or I'm sure BNP is also part of many of those initiatives, so that that can be built up and have, let's say, some economies of scale in terms of a public good that can be available to all in an open data, such as the one described by the minister? Would you have any ideas on how we can move in that direction? Ronnie, perhaps first?
Yeah, certainly, Marina. I'm very hopeful that both the G7 and the G20 will address in a serious way the issue that you raised, how we bring impact to the mainstream. There are certainly indications that both are likely to do so. We have COP26 in November. That too will address the issue. And what we're seeing, Marina, is we're seeing the organization that groups the world's regulators, IOSCO, focusing on the issue of transparency. Because what is happening, and it's worth spending 2 minutes on this, is there's evidence that this impact information actually affects the value of companies, as I gave the example with ExxonMobil and Tesla. And the effort at Harvard Business School with the Impact Weighted Accounts Initiative shows that there is a correlation within several sectors between higher levels of pollution and lower stock market valuations. This is a hugely powerful tool in bringing investment and companies to deliver solutions, this transparency. Now, regulators have to get involved, because if this is price-sensitive information, all all shareholders, all investors should have access to it at the same time on a comparable basis. And the EU and the Biden administration have special roles to play today. They can do what the Roosevelt administration did in the 30s and introduce transparency on the impacts of companies by mandating the publication of impact-weighted accounts 3 years from now, in the same way that in the 30s, the Roosevelt administration mandated generally accepted accounting principles and the use of auditors to provide transparency on profit. That is the biggest lever we have, because it will shift our economies to deliver positive impact instead of creating climatic and social problems.
Antoine, the last word is to you.
I believe that there are more and more initiatives. Again, if you take the example of TNFD, it's an effort led by governments with UNEP FI, which is United Nations, with a lot of companies coming from all over the world. So everybody is understanding the need to join the efforts. And another thing is to bear in mind that this change can generate also a lot of enthusiasm. I know that in a few minutes, Bertrand Piccard is explaining an initiative we are taking together with him to channel more money on solution, on the transition. So its disclosures are essential and common standards are vital. But I also believe that enthusiasm to build projects that are new and that really change the world are essential.
Well, thank you both so much. I think we second the call to engage, which we heard from the minister before, and I think I hear the same thing from both your sides. Let's not wait for things to become ready. Let's engage and make it together. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Antoine.
Thank you, Ronald. See you soon.
Thank you. So, for our next and final portion of this session, I'd like to call for a conversation Marie Ekeland. Marie is very hard to describe in one sentence, which I've been given, but I'll try to be very succinct. She has been a trailblazer in the high-growth finance industry, if I may call it like that, in a transatlantic role as well. So she has been a serial venture capitalist with great success, as well as a builder of ecosystems through France Digital. We're very lucky to have you here. So welcome, Marie. So we've heard from our different stakeholders today, from the minister, from the investor side, from the corporate side. So I hate to categorize it as the VC side, but let's say someone who straddles a different type of finance and who has a vision also in bringing together both the impact, the technology, and the finance. So I'd like to explore with you today, perhaps, what do you think should be the role of finance? We had a prior conversation, so I'm better prepared. What it is the action that we should be taking now, particularly in the finance side that is financing the technological revolution that Ronnie talked about before and we're all living through today, so that the impact revolution and the digital revolution actually starts pointing to the same direction.
Yeah. So first of all, I think we need to understand the role of finance. And finance is actually an amazing place to act. It has a huge power because, one, it is very self-fulfilling. I mean, you're empowering people in their initiatives, in how they act upon the world. So it's a unique place because if you decide as a VC, for example, to invest in this particular company versus that other, you're giving it way greater chances of success because they have the means to try to achieve it. So it's actually very self-fulfilling. So when you're making an investment decision, what you're actually doing is crafting the future. You know, it's building the type of society you want to live in, or you will live in, because it will change the way, it will change our behaviors, it will change our economies, it will change our society. So this huge power, because it's self-fulfilling, also because you have a macro influence. You're not acting upon one particular sector. You're acting around the whole economy. So you can actually have a macro view where companies only act, even if they think from an ecosystemic point of view, their area of action is limited. So it's a macro trend, and you're also very influential at a micro level. You can influence the company in the type of performance measures that they're looking at, in the type of governance they're putting in place, et cetera. So this is a huge place of change, finance, and this is actually the exact reason that this is the place I'm acting on, because I think it's a matrix. It's the driver of a lot of other changes. Then your question about what actually need to be changed in the finance industry, there's been a lot of parallels between the digital revolution and the sustainable revolution that we're in, or impact revolution. Everybody has a different name yet, right? But there's been a lot of similarities. One thing that I believe needs to change is that we need to set a destination to that. One thing that digital revolution didn't succeed in doing is saying where it is going. You know, what do we use technology for? And so I think the number one thing we need to change in finance is giving it a purpose, a destination, an intention. What exactly is the world we want to craft? What exactly is the world we want to live in? What is the world we want to finance? And so this is, for me, a really change of mindset, because you're not, it's just giving a purpose on money. You know, what should it be used for? Is it only earning money, or is it something else? And I truly believe, because we are living into these huge problems that we all see, that money should be aimed at solving these problems. So that is number one. Number two is, you can not only solve the problems at a punctual or local level. To be able to really have a change and solve these huge problems that we're seeing, like how we're gonna feed everybody in 10, 20, 30 years from now, or really massive international global challenges. Well, for that, you need to not only solve them locally, you need to solve them by thinking through the whole value chain and ecosystems, but also in time. So that means that the companies who are bringing solutions on this market need to align their own business interests with those of the society and those of the planet. And so this alignment of thinking, which is driving all the impact measurements and transparency to drive performance and risk assessments in finance that Olivia was talking about, and that Sir Ronald and Antoine, Sire as well were talking about, is key as well in this alignment movement. But there also needs to be a change in mindset, a change in strategy. How do we not only are adapting KPIs, but changing our strategy so it can be a win-win situation? And the last thing, which I believe has not been touched upon enough, is that we need to change the type of product. If to live through this revolution, VC and venture capital was actually the product to finance digital revolution. There's no reason it should be the same one to finance that revolution. So we need to adapt the type of products that we put on the market and the way we make investment decisions as well. And one thing that struck me as a tech investor is it's impressive how decisions are made on kind of a machine learning process. It's like artificial intelligence. In finance, we're making a lot of decisions around historical data. What exactly worked in the past? Worked meaning usually making a lot of money. And so we're trying to reproduce decisions that are passed on these, and so we're only perpetuating the current system, the current models. And if you look and do a particular focus on VC, it's very interesting because you could think that because we're at the very early stage of companies, we don't have historical data for a lot of parts, sometimes when you're investing at seed level, for example. But we're still in a mindset of pattern recognition, where we will finance companies that look like other companies who were great successes in the past. And this is why so many entrepreneurs come to see us and saying, so I'm the Uber for doctors, I'm the Airbnb for teens, I'm the TikTok of whatever, you know? And so they frame your mindset in saying, we're gonna do the exact same thing. That was a great financial success in that particular area, but just there. So that's one of the pattern recognition we see. The other one is around people. You will finance more the type of entrepreneurs who look like or who either have had past success in the past, and the same goes for VCs. I mean, VCs who do have a track record are mostly or have greater chances of being financed by LPs, by institutional investors, than people who do not have some, right? So it's really this kind of perpetuation of the current model. So if we don't think that over, we're just going to reproduce the past.
So exactly to that. So how do you propose to, let's say, redesign or re-engineering the existing model? And we'll call it VC. And I know you resist a little bit the term, sorry, my Franglish, the term impact VC, because, and now through your rationale, this is about the future. It's not, impact is part of the future, so for you shouldn't be a separate category of VC, it should be the mainstream model. So you've created 2050 with a very particular vision. So can you explain how it intends to address this kind of, legacy bias, is, if I may call it like that, in the decision making? And, if it's not an impact VC, tell us what it is.
Yes, I usually when people tell me, oh, so you're an impact VC, I look at them and tell them, oh, you're telling me I'm an impact VC is the exact same thing as when people in the early 2000s, when I was launching or being a venture capitalist in digital, were telling me, oh, so you have a fund in new technology and information and communication technologies. And I was like, this is not a sector. It's a complete transformation of the economy that we're living through. And so basically what we're currently doing is financing tomorrow's economy. And the companies who will have understood that wave better and who would have implemented it in all its strategy, in all its way of functioning, it's all its way of management, of looking and building relationship with their ecosystems, they will be the winners. They will be tomorrow's champions. And so we're not an impact fund. We do absolutely integrate all these impact measures and thinking, et cetera. But what we're actually are doing are financing tomorrow's champions and tomorrow's economy. And it should become mainstream. And it will. I mean, it's a deep wave of mutation. Whether you want it or not, it's on. So then how we've taken it and tackled it at 2050. So the number one thing we did is to set our purpose and say, what do we want to finance? What is the world we want to craft? And so it took a while to find the right word and then how it would be implemented in an investment strategy. So the right word we found is to build a fertile future. Fertile because we want it to be productive. It's a place where you need to contribute to the world. And so this is part of your own personal alignment. But two, it has to be evolutive to adapt naturally to all the big changes that we're living through. So let them be environmental, social, technological. So evolutive by nature, resilient by nature. And three, needs to be inclusive. I think we're really gonna get out of this kind of one-size-fits-all strategy of a lot of standardization, uniformization, but really trying to craft kind of freedom spaces where everybody can find the solution to their own problem by contributing in their own singularity. So this was kind of our compass, and 2050 is actually a compass in time, and so then we had a goal, right? And then we asked ourselves, what do we actually need to finance to reach that goal? And we said, well, we need to be addressing the key challenges of our world. Number one is how are we gonna feed everybody in a healthy way in 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now? Number two is how can we make sure that everyone can take care of their body and mind on a daily basis? So meaning in their work environment and their physical activity, whatever. So on a daily basis, how are you feeling well? Number three is how can we make the education and cultural system evolve so that everybody can actually contribute to build that fertile future, be equipped in terms of knowledge, in terms of skill sets, in terms of the cultural model and the type of goals that we set at a personal level. Number four is how can we live, explore, and exploit the world in a sustainable manner? So that means there's a huge carbon backbone of understanding to do that. But then you have everything around energy, of course, transportation, housing, and how you can build that kind of green transformation in the industries. And the last one is trust. I mean, how can we build trust back within societies with media system that is making democracy function, with an insurance system that is covering everybody with a new risk, and with a financial industry that can actually make sure that everybody can still think in the long run and be able to participate and be empowered by finance to achieve it as well. So these were eventually how we framed our investment strategy, which was really around problem solving. And so that's the first thing we did. But then is this idea that you want to solve problems in time. That means we also need to look at the type of companies we finance. And how can they be aligned? How can they align themselves in their business model, in the way they function, et cetera. So aligning their economical interests with those of society, those of the planet. And to do so, we've built this key alignment indicators that we will be sharing tomorrow on an open platform. And it's really interesting to see that this platform is going live at the same time as what Olivia Grégoire is doing on impact.gouv.fr, because it sees how having a common purpose make public and private action go together and really resonate in helping companies and helping this market switch happen by having a common action that is resonating basically in synchronicity. So it's pretty interesting. So this alignment kind of product that we've seen, it's actually super hard to align yourself alone. The reason companies are not doing it is not because they want to do harm. It's not true. It's because we've built this systemic market or model that is trending, that is tending to misalignment. So the great example I like to quote is that of Netflix, which is Reed Hastings is saying, my main competitor is sleep, right? And sleep is the #1 health factor of people. And when you think it through, right? And so in the long run, that means your whole company is trying to make your customers sleep less, which is creating maybe health problems on their side, but a public health issue. So this is misalignment. And so to prevent this, what we believe in is to say we need to think at an ecosystemic level. So our investment strategy is not only on companies. Obviously, to think ecosystem, you need to finance small companies, big companies, et cetera. But you also need to be able to unlock knots that cannot be unlocked by companies. So for example, we've looked a lot at the agricultural system, at the agricultural sector. And what you see is that there's nodes around the whole value chain. There's nodes around soils, the quality of soils, around the transmission of soils, around the knowledge, what producers are taught. They're not able to transition to a greener agriculture. It's not what they're taught at school. There's a question around seeds. There's regulatory issues around seeds that are preventing the industry to evolve. So there's nodes everywhere, and some of them can be are creating disruption opportunities for companies. You can see all these new companies like Impossible Foods or things like that that are having a great success. So because markets are ripe for disruption. But part of these nodes, you cannot act with companies. So you need to act with research, with knowledge, with advocacy, with open source tools. And this is why we also have this 10% of the fund and also have the carry to have it on a rolling perspective dedicated to finance these open strategic resources that say that we can actually have an ecosystemic action. And the last thing is around the product, but I will let you ask the question around it.
Well, because you're describing what is really an evergreen fund. And I think it's a very important innovation also in the governance structure, which accompanies the vision, because as you said, there are certain entrenched reflexes that kind of perpetuate each other. And in the VC industry, you know, there's also some structural issues on how a fund is built, how it remunerates the general partners, the limited part, et cetera, et cetera. So can you explain a little bit what the Evergreen Fund does? Because I think it's very interesting for our audience to understand how you've transposed something that exists, and it was created for family businesses who were long-term investors, and you've transposed it on another industry so that it will have a long-term perspective. Can you explain a little bit the governance innovation?
Sure. We couldn't say, you know, to the companies we invest in, you need to be aligned if we don't think about ourselves as being purely aligned as well. So to do that, as I was saying, we need to change the product and we need to change the governance and the way the company itself is structured. So to do that 100% alignment, we did two major changes. The first one is that the management company is held by a perpetual purpose trust. So what that means is usually it's held by the partners, the GPs of the fund, the people who are making investment decisions. And when you're doing that, and it's held by partners, that means there's value creation at that level, that the investors and the ecosystems are not sharing because it's only at that level. And you can have, therefore, misalignment between what is good for the company and what is good for the fund itself. So the way we did it is to say, we're going to give all our shares to a perpetual purpose trust, which is basically kind of a foundation without a philanthropic issue. It's really a pure governance structure that is governed by the ecosystem. So we have at the board people representing LPs, obviously, people representing GPs, the founders of 2050, but also people we have financed. And a circle of venture partners and experts that we're relying on to scale. And the last thing around Evergreen, which is the other part we changed, which is at the product level, is that the number one factor of misalignment between founders, GPs, the people and the investors, is the time frame. The fact that it's a closed fund. And so basically what you're saying is, I'm giving you the money now, in 7 years I'm going to have to give it back to founders, or in 10 years for LPs. And so you're kind of optimizing at most in this period of time. Having an evergreen structure means that you're actually dealing with this liquidity topic at the fund level and not underneath. So you're giving a lot of freedom to founders so they can have their own strategy on the company level without having to integrate such great constraints in their strategy of dealing with the liquidity of their shareholders.
We have 30 seconds, so I would like to leave you with your own call to action to your community of fellow investors at your level, high growth companies, people who are in tech. What would you say to them today? You're raising a fund with a very specific vision. You know, what would be your call to arms to your peers in the industry? What should they be doing?
I think everybody should ask itself its own purpose. I think if you come back to that and your own alignment, then decisions are easy to take. And the one thing which I know is that the current model and reproducing the same thing, it's actually way riskier than just trying something new. And doing it with this goal and purpose and saying, this is actually why I'm doing things for. And this is the true success. You know, this is the true performance that I'm aiming for.
So lower your risk, by actually aligning yourself with the future.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we can close with that.
Thanks
and
for
I
the
can extend
translation.
my sincere thanks. We said enthusiasm, I think it was Antoine who said it is a key ingredient in this. So thank you for the enthusiastic vision of what tech and impact should look together. And before we close, I'd like to call back Antoine, who will be sharing a video with us. And maybe you can say Marie while Antoine joins us.
Yes, and we have seen with Marie how much the visionary investors can change the world, and how much we desperately need people like Marie. And I want to introduce a video with another visionary person, which is Bertrand Piccard. Bertrand has gone around the world with a solar airplane, so it's very visionary operationally, but he's also working with partners, and especially with BNP Paribas to allocate means to solutions that are really changing the world, and I let him introduce our common project.
Okay.
Hello to everyone. Last time I was at ChangeNOW, I told you that the goal of the Solar Impulse Foundation was to identify everywhere in the world 1,000 technological solutions that could protect the environment in a financially profitable way. And now it's my great pleasure to tell you that mid-April of this year, we reached our goal, even more than our goal. More than 1,000 solutions available now in the field of water, energy, mobility, construction, agriculture, industry. And what are they? They are systems, technologies, sources of energy, products, materials, systems, programs. And you know what? They allow us to break the rules, exactly like you said before. Break the rules, change the paradigm, because now the protection of the environment is proven to be financially profitable. This is why it's a fantastic opportunity for investors to shift from the polluting and outdated technologies to the new, modern and profitable technologies in every field. And this is what we're going to show with BNP Paribas, who is our partner since 2017. And BNP Paribas is now preparing like an investment platform that will be like a venture capital fund, 150 million euros, and half of it will be put by the bank itself, just to show you how much they believe in it. They have the experience in investing. We have the experience in selecting profitable solutions, and our label at the Solar Impulse Foundation is the first and only one that today certifies the profitability of technologies that are environmental friendly. So you see that we have now a fantastic leverage to contribute to make the ecological transition a reality. We have solutions, we invest in order to bring the solutions to the market by helping the startups to grow, and the next step, that will be to push the regulations forward to be more modern in the way we set the environmental targets, the energy policies, and this will be the goal of the Solar Impulse Foundation. So we are continuing to break the rules, and there are a lot of things that I will be able to tell you in the future, because it's a moving process, but we are going in the right direction all together.
Enthusiasm.
Great.
Work and enthusiasm.
I think that was a great
and
party word.
We have to work all together. I really believe that in this sustainable revolution, cooperation is really the new competition. And the ones who are able to cooperate well together are the ones that are going to change the game.
100%.
You said it better than I could. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And we think I've set the bar really high this session with 2 initiatives and a great call to arms. So enjoy the rest of the summit. And thank you to all our participants for contributing today.
Thank you, Marina.